A lot to get to on today's show. We're going to break down Ohio State. Ohio Monday thoughts, Monday morning quarterbacking from Mick Walker and Spencer Holbrook. But first, I got to tell you guys about our friends over at Academy. Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find grills, canopies, jerseys, and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour at undefeatable prices every day. Shop Academy at locations throughout Ohio, including Zanesville, Springfield, and Boardman. Fun can't lose, and neither can you with tailgate gear from Academy. Go to academy.com today. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Thanks to them for being a part of the show. Again, that's Mick Walker. I'm just Spencer Holbrook. Mick, how are you feeling after a couple days removed from Ohio State 37, Ohio 9?
I'm feeling great. I got some actual sleep last night after being up till 1 a.m. Saturday and Friday night. So I'm feeling great, Spencer. You and I were talking about it. You got to take a little more time to recover as you get older. So we had to take Sunday to recover a little bit. We had plenty of content out on Lettermen Row. I think we had 13 stories written on Sunday alone. So make sure you guys head over there and you can still check them out. Many of them are still able to be read. They're a little bit more evergreen than maybe some other stories we'll have, especially heading into the off week or the idle week now. So make sure you head over there. $1 for your first 7 days. Get you through the idle week and get you prepared for the Washington matchup, which I imagine we'll touch on later.
Yeah, a little bit. We'll get into it a little bit because I want to see what we're going to be watching for this week. We'll kind of set the table for the week ahead, which if you don't know, we write a setting the table column every Monday at lettermenrow.com. By the time this video is out, that story will also be out. Mick, let's start with what everyone wants to know. The red zone. We rewatched the game. Do you feel differently about the red zone on the rewatch than you did on Saturday night? Because I did.
I do, because and obviously it's different. I'm on the field. I'm typically in one corner, so I don't always see everything happening. Like, what is it? The first drive there when the CJ Donaldson, which I imagine we'll talk about, CJ Donaldson comes sprinting wide open in that corner. And I most of the time when my camera's on, I'm following the ball, so it's all on Julian Sayin, and I don't see that out of the corner of my eye. You watch the rewatch, and it's, hey, that opportunity was kind of right there. Julian Sayin didn't rip it. You end up getting the sack and turning the ball over. So that opportunity was there. And then next drive or a drive or two later, they had the similar type of throw with Brandon Ennis, kind of on, like you mentioned on Saturday, a little motion in, motion back out, kind of a whip route type of thing to come open in the corner. And again, it's there. Julian Sayin, I don't know, it doesn't really seem like he even looked at it or even really considered throwing it. Other than that, I understand, I guess, I don't know what to say. Those were the things I didn't see really on the field and during the game. And afterwards, I think the opportunity is there. Just Julian Sayin didn't really rip it in the red zone.
I feel pretty good about Ohio State. I think these are all correctable issues. The first red zone possession, they stall out, which I'm completely cool with Ryan Day going for it on 4th and 4 from the 4-yard line. You get a 1-yard CJ Donaldson run, a 4-yard CJ Donaldson run. You have an incomplete pass, and then you get Julian Sayin gets tripped up. I actually think that he might have scored had he not tripped because I think he was getting ready to run the football. That it is what it is. On the next possession, you take a field goal because you can't get into the red zone. Whatever, that's fine. Your drive stalls out. You get a field goal. Next possession, you go in, and I know that this might seem kind of monotonous, but you get the ball on the 3-yard line, you should score. You just straight up should score. Short right pass to Jeremiah Smith, incomplete. CJ Donaldson, another rush. Julian Sayin, incomplete on a fade ball, which is the laziest play call in the world. I don't care who your receiver is. I don't like the goal line fade. Some people do, and Ohio State probably is trying to toy with it to see if it's something that they can do moving forward, and I respect that. So in this instance, I actually don't mind it if you're going to go for it on 4th and goal from the 2. If you're not going to go for it on 4th and goal from the 2, I think something better could have been done there. So I think overall, the execution could have been better in the red zone, obviously. Ohio State did score a red zone touchdown from the 16-yard line, so it seems like it gets more difficult inside the 10 more than it does inside the 20, which I understand. The field gets super condensed. It doesn't really matter who you're playing in that instance. The field gets condensed. And then, they score. They get another field goal because CJ Donaldson gets a carry in the red zone. Ohio State gets the ball to the 10. I guess that's not even really goal to go situation. But the next possession there, they think they score a touchdown on a pass. CJ Donaldson steps out of bounds. Here's the deal, Mick. And all of that, I know that seemed really stupid. That's not good podcasting. Shut up. I know, Spencer, idiot. The bottom line is the same running back, and listen, I like CJ Donaldson a lot. I think the same running back's on the field for almost every red zone snap and every red zone play. I think CJ Donaldson is a good back. I'm not sure if he's the best red zone back Ohio State has. If they need to try James Peoples or Bo Jackson down there. And that seems counterproductive because Donaldson is like the hammer back that they have, like the goal to go get into the end zone back. But I think Bo Jackson.
They kept saying on Peacock, the announcer team kept saying Ryan Day told them that CJ Donaldson was their hammer back. And like you said, it seems like you can go and continue. It just seems like they felt like they needed to hammer him too much.
Yeah, I mean, but if he's not breaking any tackles at that point, try Bo Jackson down there. James Peoples in the red zone situations. I know that Donaldson has the most experience. He's the most fumble proof, I think. But if the red zone run game is not working, I think there is an opportunity to try something else out and see if you can get better push in the red zone or more broken tackles in the red zone than what Donaldson gives you. So we'll see. I think these are all correctable things. I think they were toying with a couple things. They were also being pretty vanilla with their play calling in the red zone. I remember the national championship game, the fake motion around to Jeremiah, and it's a touchdown. They did that with Brandon Ennis a little bit and just missed one. He was wide open, and Julian Sand missed him on one of the plays. So I think there's a lot of correctable there. But overall, I think you shouldn't. Again, I really have clung. Okay. I've really latched on to what you said after the game, Mick. You're allowed to be frustrated, but you shouldn't be concerned. If this happens down the road and it becomes a trend, I think there's reason to be concerned. But for right now, I just think that it's more reason to be frustrated than to be concerned. I think that's how Ryan Day would categorize it. We'll see when we talk to him on Tuesday. There will be red zone questions because Ryan Day always says, we'll have to watch the film. Well, Tuesday gives him enough time to watch the film. We're also going to talk to Brian Hartline and see what he thinks about the way that he called the red zone and the way that they executed the calls in the red zone. So we're going to learn a lot more about that on Tuesday. But for right now, I'm not really that concerned. I just think that there's some things that they can clean up and correct and get it right.
Yeah, and I mean, a couple of things there. First and foremost, credit where credit's due. A couple of guys on Ohio made a play. The CJ Donaldson run, I think the third or fourth drive, I forget which one you mentioned. I think it was the third field goal. Adonis Williams just meets him in the hole, double legs him to the ground. There's not much CJ. Obviously, you would rather your back get run over, but that's a great form tackle. Blaine was there. He lost that matchup in the hole. You don't want to have to lose that, but sometimes other guys win. Those are scholarship players too. Same thing with that first drive. They did another goal line fade type of thing to it was more of a corner route to Carnell Tate. And again, the cornerback gets his hand in there and just able to kind of separate the ball. Credit to those guys as well. But still, you're Ohio State, so you want to be able to convert those and get those into the end zone. And overall, I think if you watch, and maybe we can talk about more of this in general offense, I think if you watch the game, John Hauser, credit to him, the Ohio defensive coordinator, they played a lot of coverage to let Julian Sand beat them. They pick here's going to be open spaces. Can your wide receivers find the spaces? Can you get there on time through multiple reads? And largely he did that, when they were in between the 20s or even before they got into the red zone. But then once it's in the red zone, those spaces just aren't going to be there naturally. You don't have the time to wait to kind of come for those spaces. So that just comes down to you need to rip the ball in where it needs to be, to the CJ Donaldson throw, to the Brandon Ennis throw. And he didn't rip it. There was times where he read it really well in that game. He just didn't rip it super great down in the red zone. And I think it's the same thing. I keep going back to the Grambling thing. I think that one that he threw the interception on, it was there to Jeremiah Smith too. He didn't rip it. And it's difficult because I think there's a couple of those hitches again, because they were dropping a lot of guys playing a lot of coverage. There's a couple of hitches he ripped in throughout the 20s where they were probably tighter windows than he had there in the red zone. And he kind of snuck them in there with safeties trying to come over, linebackers trying to come over, but he just didn't do that down in the red zone. So I guess we'll see how that kind of comes up in Washington and Seattle and how they go forward. I'm not a super big fan of using switching out quarterbacks and going Lincoln Keenel's there, but obviously Ryan Day's shown a propensity for being willing to do that in the past. And the Lincoln Keenel's package did work a little bit when they brought it out against Ohio. So who knows if that comes back. And overall, it was interesting, and maybe I'm entirely wrong on this, and we can move on to something like I found it interesting that Ryan Day was willing to kick so many field goals, not just because like I think he understood that they were going to win that game regardless. Like they weren't really stretching for points, but I also think it was kind of a point to whether it's Julian saying the whole offense or like Ohio State's talented enough. If they get 4 shots to the red zone, they're probably going to punch it in. But he didn't think his offense deserved a 4th shot. Thus, we let Jaden Fielding go out there and kick it. Like, you're not going to just out-athlete, out-talent guys for a 4th opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad theory there, and also play the game that you're in. Don't play the game that you think you should be in. If you're having struggles in the red zone on any given night, kick your field goals. You know your defense is good. If you have to win a game 12-0 and kick 4 field goals, there's no pictures on the scorecard. I play a lot of terrible golf, and if I happen to birdie a hole, I don't have to explain how it happened. I just, it's a birdie. So, like if you win a game, play the game that you're in. And I don't prescribe to that entirely because Ohio State should be able to score in the red zone on Ohio. But if you're struggling and you're not on your A game in the red zone on any given night, but you think that your defense can do enough to win you the game, which, by the way, they absolutely did. Ohio had 28 yards total in the first half. Ohio had 11 rushing yards before the final drive of the game when it was garbage time, and Ohio State was putting second and third teamers in there. Like, this was a defensive masterclass, and we'll get there. But if you know that your defense is not going to give up anything, then, yeah, kick your field goals, and try to fix it, either in the halftime locker room or after the game in the idle week. Play the game that you came with. And so I think that can be true, while also we can't just dismiss the red zone things. And Ohio State absolutely needs to get those things taken care of because it's a momentum shift if you have the ball first and goal at the 5-yard line at Washington and you come away with only 3. So you have to be better. So I think that's a good red zone discussion. It's a good thing to put a pin in. Last thing on the offense from me, a couple things. We're going to talk a lot about Bo Jackson the rest of the week, so we don't really need to touch on that. I think we'll get some answers from Ryan Day on where that running back room stands on Tuesday. I don't want to say anything before we hear from Ryan Day and Brian Hartline about that, so we're going to table that discussion. The thing that I'm very curious about that I want to hear from Ryan Day is what's going on at right guard. Tigger Shabola had a false start and a 15-yard personal foul penalty that was quite honestly really dumb. Especially on the rewatch, just unnecessary, not a good, smart play by a veteran offensive lineman who started 19 career games. Like, that's not something you should see from him. Ethan Onyanwa goes in. I don't think there was much of a drop-off. I thought that he was actually pretty good. I'm very curious as to whether that right guard battle is a battle, and I think it is. So I want to hear that from Ryan Day. And then last but not least, like if we're doing a recap of the rewatch, Julian Sand throws one of the best deep balls you will ever see. I mean, it is absolutely pristine when it's in the air. It's a tight spiral. It's got the right height. It apexes at the perfect time. It makes sure to come right down into the wide receiver's hands. Like, everything about it is great. And it's a serious weapon for this team. Being able to push the ball down the field is something that I think Will Howard was not perfect at, but could do. It's not something that Kyle McCord was great at. We saw that from time and time again throughout the 2023 season. And I think actually Sand might be a better pure deep ball, 50 yards in the air, deep ball thrower than CJ Stroud. Like, it is so pretty when he uncorks a deep ball. And so I just think that deserved a shout out. It stood out on the rewatch. Like, the ball to Jeremiah Smith, some people say it was a little underthrown. I just thought it was one of those things. Your best player in college football has beat his man so badly, put it up there for him to get. I think that was actually a pretty well-thrown ball. It was 53 yards in the air, too, which is really impressive. And then the Carnell Tate one, I don't think he could have ran it down there and handed it to Carnell any more perfectly than he threw it to him down the field. So just wanted to shout out Julian on the deep ball.
No, I think that's totally fair. Like you said, both those posts really hit. Obviously, they resulted in touchdowns. The only one I think on the deep ball that, like you said, would be a concern is that first one, like where it seems like if you maybe put a little bit more on it, maybe it's a touchdown. But again, if you're Ohio State against a MAC opponent or really any opponent, if you think if you can get the ball inside the 10, you should come away with 7 points. But we already discussed why that didn't happen and what you got to improve on there.
Yeah. So, Mick, what do you think of the defensive performance on the rewatch?
I think the most concerning thing about the defense was that I don't know if it was Brian Smith getting his bag a little bit to try and get some more points, but it really doesn't seem like that because they didn't kick any field goals. But like the second teamers didn't seem like they put in the same effort they did against Grambling. So that's something those coaches and the freshmen can get on the freshmen. But for the starters, like Caleb Downs, Jalen McClain, like everybody else that in this secondary continues to operate at a high level. We talked about it on set, like a slot fade, like that's going to happen. Chase Hendricks is a guy that is one of the top wide receivers in the MAC.
That's a first team. Full stop. That's a first team all MAC wide receiver, and you can
I don't know if we touched on this in the podcast before him that much, but before this I covered Purdue. Chase Hendricks had an offer from Purdue. I think there were some questions about him coming out of high school, but like he's probably a Power 4 talent, like, and he'll probably be there after this year. Not to be, like do that to your Bobcat, Spencer, but like that just seems how it goes for Brian Smith and the squad down there. They're going to lose guys. He's that talented. So like you got beat. I have another Power 4 wide receiver. Like I'm not too upset about that. Again, it goes back to the tackling on the play. Like Lorenzo Styles is going to be better. I think Jalen McClain probably wants that play back. If we're asked, like he's kind of put in a tough spot to be over top, but there's probably a better way to handle that, especially if you believe Lorenzo is going to be able to have the outside of the play, and he kind of went maybe too far out, but who knows? Again, it really falls on Lorenzo Styles not being able to get him down because again, it's probably the only game should have been if we correct everything in the red zone for Ohio State and we fix things. It's probably 50 something to 6. Like that should have been the max of that game.
Yeah, 56-3, 56-6. Something in that realm. I mean, 37-9 is still fine considering the game that you brought was not your A game. And so, yeah, I mean, Ohio State settles for 3 field goals and should have been probably touchdowns on at least 2 of them. So if you take 6 off the board but put 14 on there, 31 plus 14 is 45. So if it's 45-6 or 45-3, you're not feeling the same way about this game. So, again, correctable issues on the offense. The defense, I don't really have much to say, to be honest with you. It was dominant. I thought it was one of the most dominant defensive performances I've seen against a FBS opponent. I like this Ohio offense. This Ohio offense is going to be one of the best in the MAC, a league that I try to follow pretty closely, given, with the resources that I have, considering I cover the Big Ten. Sieg Bangura played at Minnesota last year. He's a good back. He really is. He's a good back. 12 attempts for 24 yards, completely erased. I think most of those yards came in the fourth quarter. Yeah, he had 10 of those 24 yards came in the fourth quarter when the game was over. So he had 14 yards before garbage time. I could not be more impressed with this defense. It's so good. And if your biggest complaint is a slot fade where Lorenzo Styles tries to be the hero instead of the eraser and tries to strip the ball instead of getting a guy on the ground and just living to fight another down, which is a teachable moment, even for a veteran, those things happen. I think you're okay. And so, again, I will say it again. Ohio had 11 rushing yards before the final drive of the game. They had 100 and I think 19 passing yards, and 67 of those came on one play. You're not losing games when you do that as a defense. So, Caden McDonald, one of the best performances of his career. I would argue that it was. I also think it was the best performance of Caden Curry's career. He is everywhere. Whether he lines up at defensive end, wide 9 or 7, sometimes he's on the nose tackle just trying to create some havoc. They can put him just about anywhere, and he's pretty effective. I really like what he's giving them, and I think it will translate to Big Ten play, not only against FBS and FCS opponents, at the lower level. I think it will translate to Big Ten play because of that high motor that we always like to talk about with him. So, Arvo Reese, great game. I thought Sonny Styles played well. We could just go right on down the line. Jalen McClain, obviously that hit was the highlight, but I thought there were other plays that he flashed. So, we don't have to stay here and wax poetically about this defense. Just look at the stats, folks. Like you are watching one of the best defenses in college football, and it's remarkable given that they are replacing 8 guys who just played in the NFL last weekend. So,
yeah, and I like a couple things there. It's interesting. You and I both we use PFF. We view PFF as a tool to kind of evaluate things, and it's interesting because I agree with you that I thought Caden McDonald had probably one of another amazing game, one of his better games at Ohio State, but I think it was his third highest. Like it was his worst performance of the season according to PFF because he's played so well in these other 2 games. Like he's been consistently their highest graded defender. This week that was Caden Curry, like you said, he would have like an elite 92 type of grade. But Caden McDonald still had a real high level grade. And the other thing that's like fascinating, and obviously I don't know how often they can do this, but they've done it multiple times now through 3 games, so it's obviously a trend. Like when they get in these obvious passing downs, they're bringing on Devin Sanchez to kind of play another defensive back so they can move the safeties around a little bit. And then you take off in that process, you bring on Devin Sanchez, you bring on Bo Atkinson, you take off both defensive tackles. And you kind of allow you have Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry, Bo Atkinson, and then you have those 2 linebackers, kind of 5 real guys on the line of scrimmage or in the box. And then you can bring pressure, you can create pressure with 4 or 5 with those type of guys, and you still have like a Jaden McLean in the middle of the field or Caleb Downs in the middle of the field, and you can still have Lorenzo Styles or one of the other safeties over top, and then the corners play. Like Ohio State has struggled, I think it's fair to say, struggled at times to do your pressure with just straight drop back 4 guys like Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry, and Edric Houston and Cade McDonald. Maybe that comes because I think Edric Houston has that upside. But when it comes to just creating pressure and finding ways to do it without purely blitzing 6 guys or sending both linebackers every time, they found ways, and I think you saw that translate to more sacks against Ohio. Like they got Bo Atkinson involved, Caden Curry involved, and you continue to allow Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles to play on the line of scrimmage, do some of that stuff. Because I remember saying in the photo bunker to Berm, our colleague, do you think Matt Patricia knows that his best pass rushers are actually his linebackers? And Berm said, yes, I think he does. Because that it generally feels like that through 3 games. The Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles are the 2 guys that if Ohio State needs to win a wrap-on pass rush, they're the most reliable. And I don't know if that's because of matchup or just talent, but those are the guys that you need to get going towards the quarterback most of the time. And they found ways to do that without compromising the entire integrity of the defense.
Yeah, and the secondary is good enough where you can do that. Well, it has been good enough against Arch Manning, who looks like he might be bad.
Well, that's Steve Sarkisian. Like Steve, who's known to exploit defense, like even got Caleb Downs when he was a freshman. Like obviously, if Arch can't hit it, Arch can't hit it. But you would think that Steve Sarkisian's shown us enough at Texas and other places that if he finds a hole in the defense, he can just make things wide open. And that wasn't there against Ohio State and Matt Patricia.
Yeah. And, Jermaine Matthews has played well enough. Davidson Igbenoson's played really well. Jalen McClain, Caleb Downs, like that. It's a good enough secondary where if you need to bring pressure and confuse the defense, you can because they're running NFL stuff in the back end. So, I'm cool with what they're doing defensively. And if they have to bring pressure, I trust that they can bring pressure. I thought it was really interesting that they were getting home at times against Parker Navarro with spies instead of using, and the spies kind of triggered a couple times. I thought that there were a couple times, to be honest, where Sonny Styles or Arvell Reese triggered a little early. It didn't hurt them, but maybe against the Damon Williams or a Bryce Underwood, they're going to have to be more disciplined in the way that they spy rather than triggering a little early. So we'll see. But I was pretty excited about the result when you watch what Ohio State was able to do against a mobile quarterback. I don't really have much else. We're going to learn a lot about this team through the Tuesday press conference. We're talking to Matt Patricia for the first time since the preseason, so we haven't talked to him about any of his defense so far. So we're going to talk to him on Tuesday. We're going to get some really good insight from Brian Hartline on what's going on with this offense. Brandon Inniss is a big topic of conversation. I understand people have a lot of questions about him. I wasn't going to touch on that until we hear from Brian Hartline about what he thinks about it, because if they are getting what they want out of him and that's what he's asked to do, cool. If they're not getting quite what they want right now out of him, then we'll have some conversation. So we'll try to find that out a little bit. Like I said, right guard is another point of conversation. They didn't punt on Saturday night. You'd love to know what's going on with that punter battle heading into Big Ten play. But if they don't need a punt, then whatever. They've punted twice or punted once since the Texas game, so it might not matter. There's a lot we're going to learn, Mick, and I'm excited to learn it alongside you and Austin and Berm and Alex over at LettermenRow.com. $1 for your first 7 days. That's the entirety of the Idle Week. We have a lot of coverage coming. Just because Ohio State's taking the week off doesn't mean we are over at Lettermen Row. Mick, Alex, and Berm are going to follow wherever the Ohio State football coaches go on the road this week because they can be on the road. Austin Ward and I will be covering the team over at LettermenRow.com. Come join us. Come hang out. And come see us back here this week for more breakdowns of the Buckeyes over at the Lettermen Row YouTube channel. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys back here on the YouTube channel. We'll see you guys over in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center on Tuesday for Ryan Day's press conference.